Ya, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group 6. We are going to present our material about postcolonial theory. Next slide. So let me introduce my member group. My name is Miki Adrian.
I'm Putri Sari Ramadhani.
My name is Dinar Langga David.
Next. And the last one is Nur Habibah Lubis. Okay, the first material will explained by Dion. So Dion, time is yours.
Okay, thank you, moderator. So the first slide is key points. The opening move, the imperial turn, Gandhi anti-colonial struggle, and the early post-colonial. And the second is front phenomenon and the psychopathology of colonialism. And the third, I'm 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 Cesar Leopold Senghor and Negritude. And the fourth, Edward Said Orientalism and the post-colonial moments. Colonial discourse and English studies. The literature of empire language and imperialism. And subject and subalternity, gender, sexuality, and the empire nation and nationalism, globalization, diaspora, and the post-national. There's three example like diaspora, cosmopolitanism, and the post-national. Next slide, please. So the imperial turn, Gandhi anti-colonial struggle, and the early post-colonial. So Gandhi's anti-colonial struggle, distinct from others, emphasized non-violence and moral superiority. His satyagraha blend passive resistance with culture nationalism, advocating local language, vegetarianism, and anti-industrialism. Gandhi's moral stance, the influential clash with Marxist post-colonial theory, healing colonialism to capitalist exploitation, initially supporting peasant and working class resistance. Two, Nandi argued Gandhi countered colonial masculinity with a feminist approach, incorporating Shakti. However, his Hindu-influenced nationalism risked alienating minorities, a point of contention for scholar post-colonial theorists. Despite this, his his syncretism and hybridity, blending Western and Hindu ideas, influenced later post-colonial thinkers like Baba. Next slide, please. Frantz Fanon and the psychopathology of colonialism. Fanon, in The Wreck of the Earth, explored colonialism's psychological impact. He argued the colonizer, the humanist native, forcing them to internalize negative stereotypes. Natives, seeing themselves through the colonizer eyes, experience a loss of identity, leading to a desire to emulate the colonizer. This creates a schizophrenic condition. Fanon linked this to violence, both self-directed and against others. He advocated for a national culture, progressing from emulation to romanticization, and finally to critical analysis. He warned against xenophobia, stressing the need for economic equality. Fanon also criticized post-colonial elites for replicating colonial exploitation, highlighting neocolonialism. He, he emphasized culture dynamic nature, urging critical evaluation of traditions. Thank you. Back to moderator.
Okay, thank you, Dion. Next slides will be explained by me. Aim Khazar, Leopold Senghor, and Negritude. Aim Khazar Negritude was a cultural response to colonial cultural suppression. He argued colonialism, driven by profit, destroy community-centered native cultures. Negritude aimed to reclaim back identity, rejecting colonial assimilation, influenced by the Harlem Renaissance. I, Leopold Senghor, a fellow negritude advocate, shares Khazar's socialist sympathies, believing African cultures were inherently communitarian, but saw colonialism as replacing native socialism with capitalism. Senghor advocated African unity but favored continued ties with Europe, indicating a nuanced approach to post-colonial relation rather than a complete severance. Next. Edward Said, Orientalism and the Postcolonial Moment. Edward Said's Orientalism revolutionized postcolonial studies by revealing colonialism's discursive nature. He argued that the Orient was a European construct, portraying it as primitive and needing Western intervention. Two, this Orientalism justified colonial power through knowledge and representation. Three, studies show how European identity relied on consolidating itself with the Orient, raising Eastern cultures, aesthetic and unchanging. He emphasized the material effects of discourse, demonstrating how it shaped colonial policies and influenced native perceptions. Despite criticism regarding its monolithic view of colonialism and neglect of gender, class, and native complicity. Orientalism highlight the political nature of culture and the power of discourse in maintaining colonial control. Next. To see the stage in which this so-called truth is produced, one the European has particular ideas about the Hindu or Islamic system within his consciousness, set by Latin Orientalism. Two, the European collects notes about the native systems. The European Three, the European interprets these notes from the standpoint of his already existing or misconception and ideas. Four, native opinions on native reality are ignored in favor of authoritative European readings or interpretation by manifest Orientalism. Five, European interpretation become the standard reading that then they reinforce the Latin ideas about the Hindu or Islamic systems. Six, these readings are actively linked to the reflect and the political demands and act of the colonial administration. Next, next slide explained by Putri.
Thank you, Miki Ardian. This material is colonial discourse and English studies, the literature of empire. Postcolonial literary criticism analyze how European narratives construct natives, repelling racialist colonial discourses. It focuses on English literature and its role in imperial dominance. Key method includes unburying hidden imperial assumption and reinterpreting colonial texts. Gauri Viswanathan's Maze of Conquest shows how English literature was used to control Indian population. For Chinua Achebe and Edward Said exemplify this reinterpretation, revealing racial bias and colonial connection in classic work. Beyond literature, postcolonial cultural studies examine various colonial writing, including medical, legal, and ethnographic texts. They also explore native presence in Europe and analyze resistance within colonial narratives, highlighting the ambivalence and fractures in colonial discourse. Here, postcolonial reinterpretation work at something else. They seek not the Scythian kind of colonial discourse that dominates and cultures and, and control the native, but rather the gap and fissures within the discourse that actually provide the native with the means of resistance and the dissenting colonial with the modes of articulating opposition. The significance of such postcolonial reinterpretation cannot be overemphasized. They show how not all English writing is necessarily racist or imperialist. Postcolonial theory, how by seeking colonial ideologies in all English texts, postcolonial readings perform the same act of homogenizing all Western literature that we once accused the ways of doing to native writing, and that resistance is always possible even within the so-called over, overlay imperialist text. Next, language and imperialism. Postcolonial studies examine how European languages functioned as tool of colonial power, while Walter Mignola's work highlights the imperial role of Spanish grammar in South America. Bernard Cohn demonstrates how English ordered India through classification. The imposition of European language led to the decline of indigenous languages. Translation itself is viewed as a political act. The continued dominance of English in postcolonial societies creates a power imbalance, marginalizing native language and literature. This results in a debate where English writing gains prestige while native language works struggle for recognition. Some writers advocate for native language like Ngu Wa Teong O, while others, like Derek Walcott, explore the nativization of English. The language issue is complex, as even proponents of native language often operate within English dominant academic and publishing spheres. Subject and subalternity. Postcolonial studies examine how colonial discourse marginalizes natives. Homi Bhabha highlights the instability of colonial identity, emphasizing mimicry, ambivalence, and hybridity. He argues colonial discourse is fractured, with the native subject resisting through repetition with a difference and mimicry, creating a third space of resistance. Gayatri Spivak, using Gramsci's concept of the subaltern, argued that colonial and patriarchal structure silence the native woman, who writes her body as her only form of expression. She critiques intellectual attempt to retrieve the subaltern's voice, arguing the only reinforced Western dominance. Spivak advocates for ethical engagement, creating space for the radical other, and warn against the romanticization and institutionalization of the subaltern, which perpetuates marginalization. Next, gender, sexuality, and the empire. Feminist postcolonial critique highlights the erasure of women in traditional colonial studies, emphasizing the double colonization by patriarchy and colonialism. The empire was largely a male-dominated project, with European men asserting domains over landscape and women. European women in colonies had complex rules, sometimes challenging patriarchal norms, other times complicit with imperial projects. Gayatri Spivak and Anne McClintock analyze how colonial ideologies shape gender roles and identities in literature, revealing the realism and gender underpinning of supposedly universal narratives. Colonial policies were deeply concerned with sexuality, particularly miscegenation and the threat of hypersexualized native men. Nationalist movement of often use women as symbol of the nation, reinforcing traditional gender roles. Postcolonial feminists critique these essentializing tendencies, examining how gender intersects with caste and class in post-independent nations. Imperialism also grapples with non-heteronormative sexualities, with homoerotic and homophobic dynamic playing out in colonial contexts.
Thank you, Putri. Next will be explained by Nur Habibah Lubis. To Bibah, time is yours.
Thank you.
Boleh nanya?
Yes.
Ini dari mana global sampai akhir, sampai conclusion?
There is no conclusion. Sampai akhir aja.
Dari nation and nationalism berarti?
Yes.
The next one will explain by me. There is nation and nationalism. Postcolonial studies critique the nation as an imagined community, often built on myths and shared tradition. Benedict Anderson concept highlight how nations are constructed through symbols and narratives. Partha Chatterjee argue nationalism is a derivative discourse adopting Western ideas. Dhanendra Pandey and Kancha Ilaiah point out the national identity often marginalized minorities like Muslim and Dalits. Feminist critique highlight the nation masculine bias. Postcolonial theory views nationalism as exclusionary, favoring majority cultures. Examples like Rwandan genocide and secessionist movement demonstrate the limits of national unity. Sidrat Deb notes the failure of the Indian nation state to include the Northeast. Postcolonial theory increasingly questions nationalism, especially in the context of globalization, where new forms of national identity emerge. And the next one, there is globalization, diaspora, and the post-colonial. Globalization itself, with its movement of people, capital, and commodities, blurs national borders and fosters cultural exchange, leading to hybridized metropolis and transnational alliance. However, it also breeds neocolonialism, a subtle form of domination through global consumer culture. Hart and Negri's empire describe this new order as the centered and deterritorialized, eroding nation-states' sovereignty. In this globalized context, marked by culture emerging and new forms of exploitation, new cultural practice and literary expression emerge, reflecting the complexities of a post-colonial world. The next one is diaspora. Diasporic authors, as ex-colonial and cosmopolitan, navigate dual identities, maintaining ties to their origin while residing in Western metropolises. Hybridity championed by Homi Bhabha rejects singular identities, embracing multiple cultural locations. This concept combats cultural binarism and essentialism. Diaspora theorists emphasize the myth-nature of home, a place of longing rather than return. Immigrants embody multiple identities, experiencing nostalgia and displacement. However, the valorization of nomadic identity, as seen in Rushdie and Bhabha, overlooks the deeper experience of working-class immigrant and women, whose racial, gender, and class markers create distinct challenge. And the next one, there is cosmopolitanism. Recent post-colonial theory, focusing on hybridity and transnationalism, explores historical and contemporary cosmopolitanism. Neela Gandhi highlights cross-cultural connection in colonial India. Asis Nandi envisioned a third world utopia based on shared suffering and ethnical recognition. Postcolonial studies now intertwines with globalization studies, analyzing cultural practice within geopolitics. However, vernacular cosmopolitanism, as proposed by Pina Webner and James Clifford, discrepant cosmopolitanism, challenged elite cosmopolitanism. It emphasized local resistance to global cultures, acknowledging diverse, often conflicting, and cultural interaction. And as for the last one, there is the post-national. Social and informational theories argue that globalization is leading to post-national condition, where nation-states become less relevant due to transnational business, global policies, and cyber culture. However, the resurgence of national identities post 9/11, uneven global flows, and racialized digital space challenge this idea. Rob Nixon proposed incorporating environmentalism into post-colonial studies, focusing on toxic discourse and colonial degradation. Simon Daring suggests that post-colonial studies should engage with globalization as colonialism colonialism itself was a form of uneven globalization.
Okay, thank you, Viva. I think that's all for presentation. Next, Dion will explain a little bit about our final project. So Dion, time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, moderator. So we want to analyze about song from Beyonce, and the title is Formation. So we want to analyze this song because this song have particularly in relation to identity, race, and resistance against white cultural dominance in the United States. In postcolonial theory, concepts such as cultural hybridity, representation, and resistance to colonial narrative are relevant to this song. And why our group chose these songs? Because the first one, representation of Black identity and African heritage. So information, Beyond celebrates Black identity and African American heritage. Lyrics like I like my baby hair with baby hair and a frost, and I like my Negro nose with Jackson 5 nostrils challenge Western beauty standards, which often discriminate against Black features. This aligns with Edward Said and Gayatri Spivak's theories on how the identities of colonized groups are often negatively constructed by colonial or Western dominance. The second is critique of social system and colonial legacy. The formation music video references slavery and racial injustice in the USA, such as the image of Beyonce standing on a sinking police car in New Orleans, alluding to racial disparities in the response to Hurricane Katrina. This connects to Frantz Fanon's theory on how colonial trauma continues to manifest in systemic racism. The third is resistance against white hegemony. In this song, Beyonce incorporates Black cultural elements, including language, fashion, and historical references, as a form of resistance.